All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Scott, an alcoholic. Hey, if you guys would stand and join us in a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God,
grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know this.
All right, welcome to the Treasure Map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an open speaker meeting of AA. We're glad that you're here, especially newcomers. In keeping with our singleness of purpose and our third tradition, this is going to drive me nuts. I'm going to make a microphone change. Okay.
Is it cutting out or is that me? No, it's got
I'm not going to start over, though. Okay. Okay, welcome. We're glad that you're here, especially newcomers. In keeping with our singleness of purpose and our third tradition, which states the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking, we ask all who participate confine their discussion to their problems with alcohol. The AA Preamble, reprinted with permission by Grapevine, Inc. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. We want to send a special welcome to anyone here from out of town. If you're from out of town, please stand and introduce yourself. All right, if anyone is here for their first time at the Treasure Map meeting, please stand and introduce yourself. And finally, if anyone is here at their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, please stand and introduce yourself. All right, well, thanks for coming. And if you need any information, you can meet us at the table at the break or after the meeting. And you can feel free to use our Treasure Map meeting 12-step cards. They're a great way to give your contact information to new people and to invite others to our group. Now, please welcome Dennis to read How It Works from Chapter 5 of the Big Book. Is that first?
How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. It is not, they are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of those do recover if they do have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having made a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order, I cannot go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. This is the point. We are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guidelines to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we are alcoholic and could not manage our lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved us from alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if He were sought.
All right, thanks, Dennis. The 7th tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. If you don't carry cash on you, the online fulfillment of the 7th tradition is available at our website, treasuremapmeeting.com. If you do give online, please take one of these cards and place it in the basket as it's passed. We thank you for your support. Your donations to the Treasure Map meeting support all of our group's activities. In addition, they pay our rent, coffee, snacks, and literature. Plus, we happily support our local Sioux Falls area intergroup, South Dakota Regional District 5, statewide Area 63, and the General Service Office supporting Alcoholics Anonymous around the world. Now, please welcome Yafat to read the 12 traditions as we pass the basket. $5.62. Right here. That page. Thanks.
You're fat alcoholic. The 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority. A loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise. These problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible for those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions and remind us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks, Yafat.
All right.
All right, thanks. Now, let's see, announcements. There's a few things here. We've got the Treasure Map meeting second anniversary celebration is Thursday, February 13th. So it's 2 weeks from today, and it's at the same location, same time. It's our normal meeting. We're having a catered dinner at 6 o'clock. We've got Cliff and Lori G from Oklahoma City coming in for that. So you can show up at 6 for that, and the speaker meeting's at 7 to 8:30. It should be a great night. And then we've got the Sioux Empire Roundup coming up on what do we got? March 13th, 14th, and 15th, and we've got a great lineup of speakers. The information for those is over on the table, and then the third one here is the Sioux City Tri-State Roundup, March 6th, 7th, and 8th. Again, another great speaker lineup, and I think there's a group going from the Treasure Map meeting, so you can see me or stop over at the table for information on that. And now, tonight is an open speaker meeting and birthday night for home group members, focusing on recovery from alcoholism through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Please respect our tradition of anonymity. And the Treasure Map Group celebrates birthdays of its home group members on the last Thursday of each month. We celebrate every month for the first 12 months of sobriety and each year thereafter. We believe birthday night is a night of gratitude. We will present the chip to the home group member celebrating their birthday and give them a brief moment to express their gratitude. After we have presented all the chips, we'll take a break and celebrate with birthday cake before the speaker shares tonight. If you'd like to become a home group member and celebrate your sobriety birthday, please stop by the registration table at the break or after the meeting tonight. And I only have one birthday on my list, so if anybody else has a birthday that I'm missing, go ahead and raise your hand after I'm done. But we've got Dennis here with 9 months. Help me welcome Dennis. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's been a good 9 months. I just want to encourage the new people, like I was once, get a sponsor. And I want to thank my sponsor too, Shane, and work the steps because it does work, and I think it's the only way it's going to work. So, and this is just a token to remind you every day of how good life can be and that you can participate in your life instead of just being present. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Am I missing anybody? Shane? No? Okay. All right, well, that's it for now. We're going to take a break. We've got cake, cookies, coffee, so enjoy, and we'll come back and hear from Randy after the break. Thanks.
Yeah, but it's nice now because, well, now they of course revamp. I really like this I know, I'm glad to do that. I would take my card. Somebody
All right. Welcome back. We've got more cake, so eat it after we're done. And please help me welcome Randy.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Randy, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to start my story kind of at the end. June of 2012, I was an all-day, everyday drinker. And when I say all-day, everyday, I mean I couldn't go a whole night without waking up and needing to get drunk again to go back to sleep. I was at that time drinking 18 beers a day, and that wasn't enough. So I was also finishing off the better part of a 750 of whiskey or rum or something like that. I was drinking a lot. I was in the process of getting divorced. I was taking anti-anxiety and antidepressants, and I was taking them like candy. If I felt a little anxious, pop. If I felt a little depressed, pop, and wash it down with a beer, right? I was living on a liquid diet. I could go 2 or 3 days without eating. Actually, it was hard for me to eat. By that time, I probably weighed 40 pounds less than I do today. I mean, I know I'm not rocking a six-pack or anything, but this isn't a big guy here. Take 40 pounds off me, and it's a heroin addict, right? My apologies to any heroin addicts if I offended you. Despite all of this, I also got a promotion at work. So I was working for a big bank here in Sioux Falls at the time, and I got a promotion. I was going to have people reporting to me that were spread out across the country. I had people in Baltimore, Kansas City, San Antonio, Boise, Idaho. So I decided it's going to be a good idea to get on a plane and go around and start visiting these people, because once the real work starts and you manage people remotely, you never see them face to face. It's on the phone and it's emails and it's text. And I wanted to meet these people who I was going to be the boss of. So I booked a flight and I'm going to Boise, Idaho. I am at least mildly claustrophobic, I can get on an elevator and I'm okay, but every time I hear a story about an elevator getting stuck, I'm one of those people that would find the escape hatch out of the top of the thing and I'd get out of it, right? I'm in closed spaces, I don't do really well in. Airplanes fall into that category. I had gotten over really being uncomfortable on airplanes, though, because most of my adult life, I'd been on airplanes quite a bit for work, for vacation, whatever. It wasn't a big deal. But for whatever reason, it had been a couple of years since I'd been on an airplane. So anyways, the day of the flight comes along. It's late morning flight. I get up. I get drunk. I go to the airport. I get through security. I drink at the bar until it's time for the plane to leave. I get on the plane, and all of a sudden, I have the worst panic attack I think I have ever experienced. My chest hurt. It felt like a heart attack. I'm sweating. I'm sweating profusely. My pulse is racing. My mind is racing. I am having a full-blown panic attack. I decide to not do anything about that and hope it goes away. The plane takes off, and I'm holding on to the seat in front of me the whole trip, Sioux Falls to Denver, Colorado. I don't know how I made it. I landed in Denver, Colorado. If you're a smoker and a drinker, Denver is a nice airport because they got this lounge. It looks over the Rocky Mountains, and you can smoke in there and you can drink in there as long as you order something to eat. So I ordered a sandwich, and I chain smoked and I chain drank for 2 hours until my flight was leaving for Boise, Idaho. The airplane I flew from Sioux Falls to Denver was regular DC-10 or whatever, right? Regular size airplane. The airplane I was flying from Denver to Boise was one of those little commuter jets that seats about 18 people, right? Among the problems I have in those planes is I can't stand up. I hit my head at the top of this airplane, right? I sit down in my seat, and part 2 of the panic attack happens, and it's worse. I mean, my pulse is racing, and I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And I look at the door to that airplane, and it's still open. And this voice in my head says to me very clearly, Randy, if you don't get off this plane, you are going to make the national news, right? Tom Brokaw is going to come on. He's going to go, a plane from Denver to Boise got diverted Billings, Montana because of an unruly passenger. He had the duct tape to his seat, right? That was going to be me. So I went to the flight attendant. I said, I'm sick, and I got to get off the plane. And I got off the plane, and the plane took off for Boise. And it was at that moment that I knew that my life was ending. That was my job. Took off of that airplane, right? I'm in Denver, Colorado. I'm in the airport. I don't know anybody in Denver, Colorado. I am not getting on another airplane. I don't have a lot of options. I've lost my job. It flew away. My job flew away. I knew it. And I knew my life was ending. And a part of me felt like I should cry, but no tears would come. And I can't explain why. Emotionally bankrupt, I don't know. So there I was. My life was ending. So how did I get to there? I'll back up a little bit about me. I am a native of Rapid City, South Dakota. Grew up in Rapid City. Raised Catholic, middle-class family, very normal childhood, right? My parents are not alcoholics. My younger brother is another story who I won't talk to you a lot about, other than he's got more of a prison record than I do. But it was a very normal childhood. I was precocious. When I was 4 years old, I could read a newspaper, and I didn't read the comics. I was reading about the Vietnam War and asking mom and dad questions at age 4, right? So I'm precocious. I'm book smart. I am also extremely introverted as a child, to a fault. I'm a very, very introverted child. Strangers scared me. First day of school, I cried my eyes out, right? I mean, I couldn't stand places that were unfamiliar to me. I couldn't stand being around people. I was afraid of strangers. I was a really, really introverted little kid. I don't know that I made that very easy to pick up. Outwardly, I think I was a pretty normal little kid. The neighborhood was a great little neighborhood to grow up in. I had friends. We played sports. I had a very normal childhood. I was actually pretty good at a couple of sports, a good baseball player, a good basketball player. That helps you fit in, right? So, I mean, outwardly, it probably looked like I was a pretty normal kid. But that whole time, when I'm growing up, I've got this raging worry. It's a fear. It's in my mind. I want people to like me. I want to be accepted, right? I mean, that was going through my head. And I bottled it up as a kid. And I knew I had the problem, and I went out of my way sometimes to kind of make myself uncomfortable and get out and talk to other people and, be less of an introvert. So I'm raised Catholic. I'm a bookworm, And so I'm in the library and I'm researching the Catholic Church, and that institution has dirt on its hands. And I decide that when I'm about 11 years old. This is a church my parents are dragging me to every week. And this is the same institution that practiced the Crusades and the Inquisition. And you've got priests who molest altar boys. And it might be the most sexist organization on the planet. I become very disillusioned with this church my parents are dragging me to by about 12 years old. I look around at other Christian religions, and they're all kind of the same in that their message is one version of do it exactly the way we lay it out or you're going to hell. You know, some version of that, right? And, you know, it doesn't matter which religion it was. And I always thought it would be funny if when we die and we get to heaven, we get to God and God would say, I'm sorry, but it was the Mormons. All the rest of you burnt, wrong answer. Purgatory is to your right. Follow the Catholics. They should know the way, right? I had a problem with that. So age 13, 14 years old, I have a problem with organized religion. I never quit believing in God, but I wasn't getting anything spiritual out of anything I was getting exposed to. And I drifted away from God and I quit praying. And by the time I was a teenager and I could quit going to church, I quit going to church and I didn't go back for a long time for any real legitimate reason, right? So that's kind of where I was going from a God perspective at that point in my life. I got into high school. My first drug of choice was not alcohol. It was marijuana. I was about 15 years old. And I was playing baseball with some friends, and we went to one of the kids' garages afterwards, and we're hanging out in weights and talking about girls and stuff. And one of them sparks up a joint and starts passing it around. And I know they knew I'd never smoked pot before. There was 3 or 4 of them plus me. The joint came around to me. I took a toke off it, another toke off it. I don't know that I got high, but the feeling was awesome. Because these really cool people included me in their group, right? That was the first high I got off marijuana, was that I was included. This is this insecure person who wants to fit in, and not everybody gets to smoke marijuana. Only the cool people do, right? So I went from not really catching a buzz off marijuana. This phrase will date me, but the term wake and bake applied to me probably a month after I started smoking weed, right? What wake and bake means is when Randy would wake up in the morning, the first thing I did wasn't brush my teeth. It was sneak out to the garage and do a bong, then brush my teeth, and then get high on the way to school and get high during my lunch hour and get high after school and get high at night. If I had a bag of weed, I was high every waking moment of the day. This should have been a sign of things to come. Despite that, I couldn't stand alcohol. I bet I drank alcohol less than 5 times in high school. The first time I drank alcohol, I got violently ill. I had 3 beers, and I was sick for 2 days. I had no tolerance for this stuff. And, so in high school, I was a pothead, but I didn't drink. I didn't like alcohol. I kind of learned to keep boundaries around the marijuana smoking. I did fine in school. School was easy for me. I'm sure I underachieved. But I also participated in a lot of stuff. I was in sports. I worked. I was the editor of the school newspaper. I joined the debate team, the introverted guy, right? Let's go debate and talk in public, right? So I did all these things in high school. Made it through high school fine. Went off to college. Because I'm an introvert and I want to adjust, I joined a fraternity in college. And I was 17 years old when I started college. So before I was 18 years old, I was a binge drinker. Because when I went to college, at that time, beer was legal. 3-2 beer was legal, ages 18 to 21, right? And I quickly got past that, beer tastes horrible deal as soon as I caught a really good binge drunk and woke up the next morning and got drunk by noon the next day. And, before I was 18 years old, I was a binge drinker. I didn't get drunk every day, but when I drank, I drank till 2 or 3 in the morning till I literally couldn't put another drop of beer in my belly, and I'd fall asleep and I'd get up and do whatever I was doing at the time. I did not think I had a problem because half the guys I lived with in that fraternity house did the same thing. They drank the same way. So I didn't have a problem. What I decided in college, and this is kind of a common theme, I think, throughout most of my drinking, I decided that the drinking wasn't a problem as long as I kept boundaries around it. You know, as long as I adulted, right? I went to class, I had a job, I went to work, I paid my bills. I was responsible socially. I'm a decent person. You know, if Randy works hard, it's okay to play hard, right? And that was my mindset in college, and it worked. Again, I'm book smart. School wasn't that hard. I underachieved and graduated from college, and met my future wife. The one thing I did learn in college was that I had to stick to beer because I would black out if I drank hard stuff. And the 2 or 3 times I did black out, I mean, I would wake up and I needed someone to explain the bruises on me, right? Because something fun must have happened the night before. So I stuck to beer. And so that was one of the boundaries. Don't drink hard stuff. The other boundary was there's rules, like don't get drunk before you go to class, get your homework done. And that worked. I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. I really didn't. Met my future wife in college, got married, got out of college, got a good job at a big bank here in town, and started drinking every day probably for the first time because I could afford it. I was a poor college student. Once I had a paycheck coming in, I was drinking a 6-pack every night, but that wasn't a big deal, right? I mean, I like the effects of it. Relieve the stress, hard day at work, help me sleep. However, a 6-pack wasn't enough after, I don't know, a year or two. So I moved up to a 6-pack of Tall Boys because that's still a 6-pack. They ran out very quickly. Graduated to a 12-pack. I was running out of a 12-pack, you know. I was drinking a 12-pack of beer 7 days a week. 12 beers 7 days a week by the time I was in my mid to late 20s. And if I was running out, if it was like 11:30 and I had 3 beers left, I went back to the liquor store. I don't know how many times I drove to a liquor store at 11:45 to get more beer because the concept of running out was unacceptable, right? So I'm drinking 12 beers a day. I'm also doing very well at work because Randy's got boundaries, right? No drinking until you get off work, right? Except for the weekends, then you can drink at noon, whatever the rule is, right? As long as I kept boundaries around my drinking, what I decided is I was dependent on alcohol, but I was not an alcoholic because my concept of an alcoholic was the guy that's homeless living under the bridge, right? That's not, I mean, I'm married, I got kids, I got a wife, I got a job, I'm the boss of people by the time I'm 26 years old. I'm doing okay. 12-pack of beer or not, right? The 12-pack of beer was not enough, obviously. I was having to run a liquor store. I believe Budweiser invented the 18-pack for Randy. 18 worked for a while. 12 was not enough. 18, you know, I'd have 1 or 2 left over the next day. But I didn't have a problem, right? So I've got 2 kids. The oldest child came along, and she was an easy baby. Went to, you know, slept through the night, smart kid, liked school. And I'm thinking, oh, this is happening because I'm father of the year, right? Doesn't matter if I'm drinking 14 beers a night. If I got a kid turning out like this, I must be father of the year material, right? Easy kid. Kid 1 did not prepare us for kid 2, right? So our son is born 3 years later, typical kid. Troublemaker, smart. We get in a little bit of trouble. Sleepovers are off limits by about age 7. Those suckers would sneak out every night, right? But you know, I thought I wasn't an alcoholic. I was going to PTA meetings hammered, but I was going. I was coaching my kids, softball, baseball. I coached my daughter's softball team. Girls sing in the dugout. I did not know that till the first softball game I coached. You know, but I was a parent. boundaries, right? And I wasn't coaching drunk very often, but I can remember sitting in those dugouts, not caring if we won or lost. I just wanted the game to get over, right? But I didn't have a problem. So child 2 was a good athlete. Really, the boy was playing club sports when he was 10 years old, and natural basketball, natural baseball, right? And it probably helped keep him out of trouble. Some good structure, because dad was pretty absent at this point. However, one day he was playing in a baseball game. He hits it's a rope to the fence, right? Easy double, and he's running out and he's limping. And I hadn't noticed that before. And so after the game, we're driving home, and I asked him, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "My hip hurts." And I go, "Well, how long has your hip hurt?" And he goes, "A year." He's 12 years old, right? So we take him to several doctors, and they finally diagnosed my 12-year-old son with rheumatoid arthritis. 12-year-old, right? That sucks at this age to get as a diagnosis. It ended his life as he knew it, because he couldn't play sports anymore. Bad for his joints, right? 12-year-old. He was really good at sports, right? And that 12-year-old's social structure changed. He quit hanging out with the kids he was playing sports with, and he started hanging out with these kids that would show up on skateboards and wearing stocking hats in the middle of the summer, right? I know who these kids are. I told you what my first drug of choice was. I'm not an ignorant prude about marijuana. My son, by the time he was 13 or 14 years old, was smoking pot every day. And that wasn't the only drug he was messing around with. And I knew it was happening. Again, I'd find these pop cans with holes poked in them. I'm like, I know it's a pot pipe. When we were a kid, we cut apples up and made pipes out of them, right? We were cool. I knew he had a problem. He was smoking. He was doing it. Randy was doing it at age 15. He was doing it at 13. Wake and bake, right? And the conversation I should have had with him was, smoking pot every day is a problem. Don't smoke pot every day. Something. I don't know, right? That conversation never took place, because every waking moment I was at home, I had a beer in my hand. Every waking moment. That child never saw me sober, probably. Can't have that conversation with that boy. And he went off the rails. During his teen years, he was arrested for burglary and aggravated assault and distribution of a controlled substance. You go to prison if you're a grown-up on those things, right? And then curfew violation, curfew violation, curfew violation. The cops would call me and come pick him up, and I would be 3 times a legal limit drunk. I know it. And I would go pick him up, and I would drive him home, and the only thing I was thinking about was drinking more, because he was just getting in the way of my drinking at that point. This isn't Father of the Year material I'm describing anymore, is it? Right? But hey, I'm a good husband, right? My wife, love of my life at the time, was bipolar, and we didn't know it. The symptoms really didn't manifest until after we got married. Being married to bipolar can be interesting. I was in bed one night and I woke up and the radio down the hall is blaring. It's 3 a.m., right? Blaring. And I wake up and I go down the hall and my wife is in there and she's painted the bathroom like this beige exterior paint, the whole bathroom. And when I say the whole bathroom, she painted the walls and she painted the ceiling and she painted the bathtub and she painted the sink and she painted the floor and she painted the door beige exterior paint. The bathtub didn't turn out really well. It was kind of funny. She painted herself into a corner. The only place she hadn't painted was this little... I laughed. You have to have a sense of humor sometimes. And I said, honey, if you wanted a new bathroom, you should have just asked, right? And she got a new bathroom. Sometimes being married to bipolar can be a little bit more challenging than that. When I got home from work every day, I had to go through the garbage to see what she threw away, because sometimes she would throw away things like every bit of silverware in the house, or my laptop computer, or our wedding album. One day, kind of similar to the other little story, I was in bed and I woke up, but this time I was alone in bed, but this time I heard our then 1-year-old daughter screaming. I mean, screaming. And I went down to go check it out, and I find my wife trying to drown our daughter in the toilet. Alcoholics and bipolars make for an interesting marriage. I wouldn't encourage it. So she was also the only person who really knew how much I was drinking. And, and so by this time she's on disability. She can't work. And she would harp on me once in a while about how much I was drinking. 18 beers a day. Maybe on a good day, only 16. And she would harp on me about it. And, my response was just this angry, I'm the one working. I'm the one putting a roof over your head. Shut up. I'm going to drink if I want to drink, right? I never struck that woman. But what I just described to you is emotional abuse nonetheless, right? There's an amendment that needs to be made at some point. So this guy who, even though he's drinking 18 beers a day, isn't an alcoholic because he's keeping boundaries around it. It's starting to crumble. My health started going. One day I was at work, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I have the worst chest pain in my life. The worst chest pain in my life. I know it's a heart attack. I don't tell anybody. I'm at work. I walk out of work. I can barely walk. My chest hurts so bad. I get in my car. I go to the liquor store, and I get a 6-pack of Tall Boys, and I drive home to see if the 6-pack of Tall Boys will make the chest pains go away. They did not. So at that point, I called an ambulance. And they came and got me. They took me to the emergency room, and if you're having chest pains, you go to the front, and they put all this stuff on me. They did blood work, and I was not having a heart attack. It was pancreatitis. Guess what causes pancreatitis? 18 beers a day for a long time, right? There's not much they can do for pancreatitis. Long term, they put you on enzymes and try to fix the thing, right? But you've screwed up your pancreas, you've screwed it up, right? So they had me on IVs. They rehydrated me. I felt better. The wonderful banana bag. Yay. If you need a cure for a hangover, go to the ER. Those banana bags are miracles. For $3,000, they'll cure a hangover, right? They wanted to hold me overnight for observation, but I looked at the clock, and it was 5 o'clock. And so I pulled the IV out of my arm, and I walked out of the hospital and caught a cab and bought a 12-pack on the way home. And what I discovered eventually about those chest pains was that I just didn't drink enough beer that first time, that if I drank a 12-pack, the chest pains would go away. So for the last 5 years I was drinking, when I had chest pains, I ignored them. I just drank my way through them. I am a chain-drinking, chain-smoking 44-year-old at this point, and I'm ignoring chest pains, right? But obviously, I'm not keeping real good boundaries around this, right? And eventually, 18 beers wasn't enough. And I had a choice to make. It was either start buying a case of beer, and I wouldn't do that because that would have meant I had a problem. Someone who buys 24 beers a day is too much. 18, though, I had to find something else. Randy's boundaries include no hard stuff, which I followed for about 27 years of my drinking, but I had to supplement that 18-pack. So I started buying a 750 of Jack Daniels one day, Bacardi the next day, and that's how much I drank for about the last 2 or 3 years. The oldest daughter moved out. Marriage is crumbling. The boy is basically a vampire. And I'm still smoking pot, right? I swear to God, the vampire, the boy, don't tell him I call him that. He probably knows. He lived upstairs in the house. I lived downstairs in the house. I think each floor of the house had its own bag of weed. 48, the 48-year-old downstairs and the 18-year-old upstairs. Each had their own bag of weed, no sharing. Mine was probably better. I knew that. Yeah, right? So that's where I'm at, right? The marriage is ending. I tell my wife I don't want to be married anymore, right? I'm sick of going through the garbage every day. And I'm expecting her response to that to be to beg me for another chance, right? And her response was, don't F over the kids, right? So that was done. I thought I'd drink less after she moved out. Wrong. She was the only filter I had. The drinking went nonstop. I was smoking pot. I was on antidepressants, anti-anxiety, drinking as much as I was drinking. And then I was given the opportunity to work from home. Yes. My last boundary was I wasn't drinking before 5 o'clock. But when I was working at home, I didn't have to put pants on. And eventually 5 o'clock became 3 o'clock and 3 o'clock became noon. And I eventually was waking up with a shake so bad I had to get drunk to type, right? And so I'm flaming out. But I get a promotion, I get on the plane, I flame out again, I'm in Denver. So from Denver, I rented a car and I came back to Sioux Falls. That was about Father's Day week. A couple weeks later, my daughter and my mother are coming to visit me in the Vampire for 4th of July. And my close family members know that I'm flaming out drinking. I mean, they know I'm living on booze and that I look like I'm dying because I am drinking myself to death at this point. And so my mother's there, my daughter's there, and I get up, I get drunk, I go back to bed, and I don't know what time of morning it was, 10, 11 in the morning, and I wake up, and there's these 3 female voices hovering over me, right? It's my mom, and it's my daughter, and it's my ex-wife who has a financial interest in my living, I guess. My daughter has taken charge. She's about 20 years old at the time, and she goes, "You need help. We made an appointment at Avera. You're getting an alcohol assessment." And I chortled because I'm pretty sure I know how the alcohol assessment's going to turn out, but I'm game. And I go, and it's a counselor, and he asks me questions. The one thing I did differently is for the first time in my life, when I was asked how much I was drinking, I told the truth. You'd go to the doctor's office and you fill out that paperwork, and how much do you drink a day? And be like 2 to 3, right? And that's breakfast, I told the doctor I'm drinking 18 beers and I'm popping back a 750 Jack every day. He was less impressed than I thought he'd be. And then he said, "You should probably do inpatient." I go, "All right." I knew this day had come, right? I mean, I knew where I was going. And he said, there's a couple places with beds open. There's Keystone. In Keystone, there's big bucks at Keystone, right? I don't know anything about AA at this point in my life. I do not have a single friend who doesn't drink. They make me nervous. All I know about AA is it is a church because there's God in it. And it's not that I don't believe in God, but God can't help me. And Keystone had a little bit of that in it. I knew that because my son had done the juvenile program there, and so I knew they had a little God thing. So I can't do Keystone. The other place they said had openings was this place called Tallgrass. I did not know a single thing about Tallgrass except back then they were running TV ads. 2 in the morning, target audience, right? And these TV ads were this new age music playing in the background and this camera panning around the campus. And there was like this Bob Ross voice whispering, "Tallgrass, progressive approach," right? And that stuck with me, that progressive approach. And I said, I bet that's not a 12-step program. I'll go to Tallgrass. So I went to Tallgrass. My hands were shaking so bad that I couldn't fill out the paperwork, so they made me detox first. I went to Watertown and detoxed at Serenity Hills. If you'd offered to take this shovel to my head and ended my life, I'd have done it. That hurt. 3 days later, I go back to Tallgrass, and I fill out the paperwork, and they give me a big book and a 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, and I say, lunch is at noon. And I go downstairs, and I say to myself, God damn it, this is a 12-step program. And I came this close to walking out, close, right? Can't do God. I cannot do this. But I've described to you where I was. I'm blowing up my pancreas. Liver's not far behind. I'm 49 years old. I'm 40 pounds underweight. I don't know what I was doing. Was I trying to drink myself to death? I don't know. Kind of. It's a chicken way to commit suicide. So I said to myself, I will try this because I don't know what else to do, right? So I do Tallgrass. And Tallgrass is a 12-step immersion program. No TV, no cell phones. Big book, big book, big book. Parts of the program made sense to me right away. The God part came up in step 2. I'm like, can't we wait till step 10 before we get to that or something, right? No. Fortunately for me, I was assigned a gentleman as a mentor, and he was about 12 years sober, and he was still going to meetings 3 days a week. He wasn't a Bible thumper, thank goodness. That probably wouldn't have worked for me at the time. You know, and he pointed out to me the spiritual experience in the back of the book and explained that you can figure out the spirituality as you go along, right? So I said, okay. You know, parts of it made sense to me. In the big book, I was reading the definition of an alcoholic, and I was looking in the mirror, right? I am an alcoholic. Ooh. But I still didn't like meetings. I don't like talking to groups of people. I don't. And I didn't like AA meetings. And you get exposed to AA meetings when you're at Tallgrass, right? The daycare, right? So these guys are here at this meeting tonight. And I didn't like listening to other people's stories. And once I'd heard everything in the big book a couple times, I figured I was good, right? I almost had the thing memorized. I'm book smart, right? I blew through the thing cover to cover, front to back, twice the first 2 weeks I was there. I read the thing. It made sense. I got the stuff, right? And so I got to my 30 days at Tallgrass, and I felt good. The one epiphany I had was after a week, I wasn't craving alcohol. I didn't think that was possible. That experience I just explained to you, in 30 years of drinking, the longest I went without alcohol was 3 days. I had one DUI arrest, and I tried to not drink for 3 days. I couldn't make it past 3 days. I actually made it a week at Tallgrass, and I wasn't like craving alcohol. So I'm like, maybe this works. Maybe this works. So I do the Tallgrass program. The big book stuff makes sense to me. But I kind of thought I had it when I got out of Tallgrass. I'm good. I get the stuff, right? And so I check out of Tallgrass, and I vowed 2 things. I just say, I'm not going to meetings. I didn't like them. And 2, I vowed to never set foot in that institution again. I was never going to go to Tallgrass in a million billion years. I was not going to be one of those groupies that hung out at Tallgrass. No, I'm good. I walked out. And I went home. My family had actually moved me to T, South Dakota. I rented a place, and they moved my furniture, and I walk in the door, and I'm like, this is where my furniture is going to be, I guess, for now. And I have no family. I'm alone at this point. I'm living with a dog. And that first night sucked. It's the hardest night of sobriety in my life. And you know what I did right? Nothing. I didn't call anybody. I didn't pray. I didn't meditate. I didn't go to a meeting. Nothing. I white-knuckled my way through that first night. I stayed sober by that much. Next day, I got up and I went to 2 meetings. 3 months after that, the maintenance guy, Bobby, calls me up and he goes, have you been drinking? And I'm like, no, what have you heard? And he goes, get out here and volunteer and do a meeting, right? So 3 months sober, I'm doing meetings at Tallgrass, a place I swore I'd never set foot back into again. I'm doing meetings out there, right? 9 months in, I'm mentoring. And it's working. The first year is a challenge. I believe getting plugged into 12-step work before I was ready for it made the difference. I believe 200 days that first year I stayed sober by that much. But you know how much you have to stay sober by every day in this program? Not much, right? Amazingly, I still had my job at the big bank. However, I had cheated and cut corners and made numbers dance to get ahead at Tallgrass, at the bank, right? All those promotions I was talking about, I cut corners, book smart kid, I made the numbers dance. I'd worn out my welcome there. And so, 5 years sober, I finally walked away from the banking industry. And Tallgrass asked, I'm semi-retired. I had no job and I was okay. And Tallgrass asked if I'd come work 2 weekends a month or something like that. I don't know how that turned into full-time, but it did. And so I'm there at Tallgrass, right? I've been there for 7 years. I've been working there for 2 years. So I'm seven plus years sober, and I've been plugged into Tallgrass the whole time. I didn't know anything about this deal before I walked through the doors of Tallgrass. I didn't know anything about recovery. This disease is fatal, and I didn't know that until I got into this deal. Tallgrass is a small place. 10 to 12 people are usually there. 2 of the people I went through there with are dead. Heroin overdose, and a gentleman was found frozen to death in a ditch with a blood alcohol level of about 0.5. 2 of those people are dead, right? And I hate to be macabre about it, but this deal is life and death. I mean, if you read this book, if you read what the founders say about this book, those of us that have this disease are doomed. And the best psychiatrists and psychologists in the world for 200 years believe that. And there's only one solution to it, and it's a spiritual solution. And I'm not good at it. I tried going back to church when I got sober, and that just, the church thing doesn't work for me. I do not knock people that can make, church and this deal work. I actually think I probably have something to learn from those people, right? The last 2 years, I've made way less money than I made when I was gainfully employed in the financial industry. But anybody that has known me will tell you that I'm happier now. The one thing I've had to guard against, you would think that if you're working full-time, getting paid to show up and talk to crazy, newly recovered people about this program, that I shouldn't have to do meetings, right? You know what? I'm wrong about that if I start thinking that. I've had to learn that I've got to keep working my program, right? There's got to be a balance. And I think that anybody that does this deal, if you sponsor someone, you got to take care of yourself too. You can't get complacent by yourself. You got to make sure if you're doing this deal, you find the right balance, right? What I tell people that I think I've kind of been in the process of figuring out about this program is do not try to do this by yourself, right? Unless you're Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood could get drunk. Unforgiven is the best movie ever, right? The rest of us should not try to get sober by ourselves. And when I say that, there's 2 pieces to that. One is figure out the higher power stuff, figure out the spirituality. You will never figure it all out. We are not smart enough to figure it all out. If God fulfilled all of the information we want, it would make our heads blow up, and that would be messy. It's okay that we don't understand everything, all right? It's okay. So don't try to do this deal by yourself. Go to meetings. Do not be like Randy, day 1 out of Tallgrass. Go to meetings. It's part of the don't do it by yourself. The 12-step concept that Bill and Dr. Bob landed on was an absolute epiphany. You stay sober working with other alcoholics. There's no question about that. You absolutely do. I tell the people that are going to Tallgrass, if you're doing a treatment program, I tell them if they don't go to a meeting within 24 to 48 hours, their chances if you graft it go like this. And it's hard because that an inpatient treatment program is tough. And I mean, you get out of there and you kind of want to live your life, you know, and don't get complacent about it. So go to meetings, but going to meetings by itself isn't enough. Not doing it by yourself is enough. You got to keep working this program, right? Step 3 is a bear for me. Most of the steps on this list of 12 steps you don't check off, right? I mean, you keep moving gut back and you keep doing them every day. You have to get in some good habits. So every day when you're at a meeting, you read how it works, right? I swear to God, some days I don't know how. And I don't know that it's any more complicated for me than I go to bed at night, and if I can't think of anything else to pray about, I just say, thanks, God, for letting me be sober today. Since I made it today, might as well take another swing at it tomorrow, right? So I am done. Best of luck, everybody, with your recovery, and thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Randy. When we're done saying the Lord's Prayer, if you could come over here so everybody can thank you for sharing your story. We appreciate it. And let's close with the Lord's Prayer and make sure you eat more cake before you leave. Our Father,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back and work.
Yes, Lord, yeah, thank you.
very good. Yeah, very good.
Unforgiven is a good movie.
Oh, that's fun.